How's it going, everybody? My name's Sean, Public Affairs Officer here with your virtual Snowbirds. Today we have a review of the Thrustmaster TCA Officer Pack Airbus Edition by yours truly, Striker. So, a little bit about Striker. Striker started flying Airbus fly-by-wire aircraft with the A320 family pack in 2004, based out of Peru. He flew throughout South America and the Caribbean, including some of the most challenging approaches such as La Paz, Cuzco, Quito, and Bogota. Later on, he also flew the A330 through North America, the Middle East, Europe, Africa, the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and the Far East. He obtained his command in 2010 at the age of 30 on the A320 family, operating throughout South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Finally, he's been flying the A380 since 2014 throughout the world and all 5 continents. Overall, he's got 13,000 hours of Airbus FBW experience through a period of almost 20 years. So, as you can see, he's got lots of experience with this type of throttle and joystick. So, I'm done talking. Without further ado, here's the review.
Hey guys, so I just received the Thrustmaster TC, the Thrustmaster Captain Pack Airbus Edition. It's really nicely packaged. You can see, came very secured. There's the graphics there and the box. Looks pretty nice. As you can see, you're supposed to get the joystick as well as the throttle quadrant with the flaps and the speed brakes. It's actually quite nice, and you can see there's some options. You can switch sides if you wish. Now let's proceed and open it up. Let's see what's inside. Nice. So you have a little quick reference paper that you can see. Let's take a look to see how this looks. You pull it right out, it seems like out of the box. That's a nice detail that we removed before flight. That looks kind of cool. Let's lift it up here and see what we got. So obviously right here is the throttle quadrant, the stick. This looks like a USB-C to USB-A cable. Additional to that, another USB-C to USB-A cable. Connector cables as well. Kind of push button. Okay, so this looks like the autopilot disconnect push button. So now that it's completely out of the box and all the plastic's been removed, I can have a nicer look at it, closer look. So I'll tell you right now, the side stick feels pretty close to the real thing. Feels like the buttons are in the right place. Obviously we don't have trim hat in the real aircraft. That's something that Thrustmaster added to this side stick. Having said that, it is nice to have, because obviously not all airplanes have auto trim. Also as well, this button is added that's not in the real aircraft either. You only have the autopilot disconnect and then your push and talk back here. Another thing that's added here is obviously they put the throttle slider. If you were to buy just a side stick, I guess you can use that as a throttle, as well as obviously all the buttons that we have right here that you can see are compatible with the Xbox. So you can use it on the Xbox and the PC. The feel of the stick is obviously it's not as stiff as the real aircraft, but it's decent. Once we plug it in, we'll see how accurately we can hand fly with it. And you also have the rotation there on the stick if you want to use it as a rudder. I have rudder pedals, but if you don't have rudder pedals, that's a good option to have. Now, just quickly looking here at the truss levers. It's nice, it's got the detents. I'm not sure, it feels like there's an extra detent in there. Yeah, so usually you would have idle detent, and then you would have climb detent. Well, I guess this would be the climb detent, that's the MCT, and that would be toga. To tell you the truth, it feels like the climb detent should be right here, The MCT should be here, and they should be just a little bit further forward to go into toga, but I guess that they probably have limitations to do that, so this is the best they could do. You have the two auto throttle disconnect push buttons here, one on either side, which is a nice touch that they did it on both sides. And then if you can look, you also have your thrust reversers right here, so you lift them up, that unlocks them, very similar to the aircraft, and then you can move them into the reverse reverse range of the throttles, right? You have a speed brake, so it has a couple more detents than the real airplane. The real airplane, you just have a detent right there on the halfway point and then the full way, and then you could usually pull it, but that's not the case here. You can only retract and go all the way to full. It would be a nice touch if they had made it pullable so that you could arm the spoilers that way. The flaps, they did a decent job on it. You have your flaps 0, 1, 2, 3, and full. And the only thing that's different from the aircraft you have to, I don't know if you can go down and you can see, you can pull here on the aircraft, and that allows you to move it from one detent to another, so you don't accidentally change the flap setting in flight, right? Having said that, we're in a flight simulator, so at home nothing's going to happen if you accidentally put flaps 1 or flaps 2. So I can see that there was no need for the extra complexity. If we look further down, we have a tiny little parking brake. Rotates the same way as the one in the aircraft. You have a rudder trim, very small, and a rudder trim center push button. You have the engine mode selector. You can go crank, normal, ignition, same as on the aircraft. Looks like those are push buttons. I'm not sure what they do. We'll have to look into those. I'm sure you can map them to whatever you want. And then you have your engine master switch. They go from off to on. Once again, on the aircraft, it's the same as the flaps and other controls. You have to lift them up and then pull them over. This one's you just flip them back and forth. The landing gear selector, same thing. No pulling, you just go up, down, and then it's nice that they added the auto brake selector. This is the style of the newer aircraft with BTV. So you have the option to disarm, BTV, auto brake low, auto brake 2, 3, and high. Looks like I'm pretty sure this is not going to be mechanized in the aircraft. If the BTV, for example, disarms you to a failure, it will automatically click to disarm, or that's not going to be the case here. But having said that, I am pretty impressed with what they did here. The quality of the plastic seems pretty good. It's got some weight to it, so it's not gonna move around. Some of the few things that you have here is if you wanted to expand and have a 4-engine throttle quadrant, you could do that, and that's shown somewhere in here. We saw it over here. So it's right here. If you can see, you can add a couple more throttles in there, and then you'd have a 4-throttle quadrant, which would be really nice. As I mentioned before, you can also make this left-handed or right-handed as needed. Another point, if you look back here, you have the options to add the throttle, add the rudder pedals, and on the side stick you have the option to go PC or Xbox, and then you have a couple of USB ins, which I'm guessing allows you to further expand if you're running low on USBs, which is a nice it's a nice addition as well. To add to the throttle slider on the side stick, it looks like it also has a bit of a reverse range. I'm not sure if that's mapped as a button or if it's mapped as a slider. We'll have to look that up. Anyway, let's go try it out. Hey guys, so now I've been able to play around a little bit with the Thrustmaster Airbus setup here, and I have to say it's pretty nice. You're able to lock the side stick if you don't need the rudder pedals, which I have my own rudder pedals, so I've locked it. To do so, there's just a switch right here. You push it in, and now it will not rotate. Also, what I did is I disabled this throttle, as obviously we have our own throttles here. So far, this is what I found. So, as you can see, I'm on the excellent A320 that fly-by-wire guys do. It's an amazing high fidelity model that they have, and best of all, it's free. So here are my findings. The stick is very good. It is very precise. It feels quite similar to the real aircraft. It is much softer, so it doesn't take as much strength to move it around. Having said that, I'm able to fly fairly accurately with it, especially if you're flying an Airbus. Now, onto the throttles. There are some things I really like about this setup, and there are some things I don't really like. I love the fact that you have the auto thrust disconnect buttons right here. I love that you have the flaps, you have the spoilers. I love that you have some of your controls here, like the parking brake, rudder trim, the engine mode selector, the engine master switches, the landing gear, and so on. The one thing I am not very happy with is the actual throttle part. And what I'm going to show you guys is, just so you can take a look. You can see the throttles right here. And if you follow the mouse right there, this is the idle detent. This is the climb detent. This is the flex MCT detent, and this is the toga detent. Now, if you follow here on the physical throttles, you will see that you have the idle detent here, followed by the climb detent, the flex MCT detent, and the toga detent. What you can see right here is that if you compare that to what's on the screen, the climb to idle range is quite wide. It's almost, I would say, more than double, almost 3 times the size from climb to MCT and from MCT to toga. When you look at the way it's set up here on the joystick, on the controller, on the throttle quadrant, they're all about the same range of motion, which unfortunately ends up creating a problem where when you want to control the thrust between the idle and climb detent, which is where you would do most of your manual flying in the real aircraft, it is very sensitive. The range is very small. I wish the climb detent was not here, but it was here, and unfortunately that is not the case. Now, the reverse onto it, I do like the reverse. I like that you have to actually use the guards to get it out of forward thrust into reverse thrust, and as you can see, that works fairly similarly on the throttle. And if you move it all the way back, now we're full reverse, and now we can move it back into idle. Now this is what I meant before. I want you to take a look at the movement of the throttle compared to the movement on the screen, and you will hopefully be able to see what I meant about how sensitive it is. Look at how much throttle angle there is on the screen and how little throttle angle there is on the controllers. I'm already at climb detent right there. Didn't take very much. If I go into MCT, toga, and then all the way to idle, you can see that very little movement translates into a lot of movement in the cockpit. There is a way, if you wish to, let me just cancel the auto warnings here, stand by. So there's a way to disable the detents on the throttles, which is you lift the gate and then you move it forward, then it leaves the gate up there, and now you still have the detents, but I guess you could change it so that the reversers would no longer be there, and this would be your full range of motion. That might be a little bit easier, but then you lose the feature of the reverse thrust. You end up having to choose whether you want the reverse range or you want a wider climb range. Anyway, I'm not gonna set up the FMC. I'm just gonna put the flaps at 1. You can see the flaps moving right there. We're gonna ignore the takeoff speeds not inserted. We're gonna do a lot of things that we wouldn't do in real life, obviously. Let's turn the fly directors off. Let's put the bird on. And we'll just do a quick takeoff just to fly around. So release the parking brake. Parking brake's off. And we're gonna bring the throttles to toga thrust. We're gonna silence that warning. 130, 140, that should be about right. Let's rotate. If I remember correctly, I haven't flown the actual 320 in a while. 15 degrees, positive climb, gear up. We're going right through 1000. We're going to accelerate and flap 0. And let's try to level off around 3,000 feet. See, it's actually a bit difficult to control the thrust, and that's because the range is quite small. If you're happy setting up the reversers with another button, maybe one of the auto thrust disconnects, that might work so that you have a better range for the thrust levers. Okay, so we're just coming up to 3,000 feet, 2,900, 250 knots. So I'm gonna zoom in on the PFD there so you guys can take a closer look, and maybe a little bit to the left so you can see the thrust as well. There we go. So you can see, if you want to, you can be quite accurate with this stick and throttle. It's just very easy to overpower. Like, I'm barely moving the throttles and I'm getting a lot of thrust changes. You have to be having said that, it's very accurate, it's very sensitive, so you wanted to fly it like this, you could. Now I'm going to do a bank to the left. That's more or less what I would expect as range of motion in the real aircraft. I'm going to level off again. So it actually is a really nice product. I really enjoy flying with it. I'm gonna try it out with the full range of motion. I might enjoy it more that way. Having said that, would I recommend this? I say if you're gonna be flying an Airbus, I highly recommend it. I think you would enjoy it. I think it's a good product. If you're gonna be flying Boeing, you might not enjoy it as much. And if you can just look here on the left, this is what I'm comparing it to. This is the product I usually use, which is Warthog HOTAS with an extension. And believe it or not, if you're gonna fly an Airbus, this is much better than that. So that's how good that stick is. The throttles, I think I'd be happier if the range of motion was better. That's the only thing I would improve on. You can also change the tension on the flaps and the speed brakes as well as the throttles. I made it as stiff as possible just because it felt too soft with the default setting. And the one last thing I would like to see, maybe if they make any changes in the future, is be able to pull your speed brake to arm it, just like you do in the real airplane. That would make it amazing. Anyway, that's all. That's my review of Airbus stick and throttle from Thrustmaster. They did do a good job. For the price point, I don't think you can ask much more than this. And hope that was useful. Take care, guys.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that review of the Thrustmaster TCA Officer Pack Airbus Edition. If you did, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, because more reviews will be coming out on this channel and you don't want to miss it. If you have any questions on the joystick and throttle, please write it down in the comment section below and we will do our best to get to you. Alright guys, my name's Sean with the Virtual Snowbirds, signing off. See ya.